the Word, from time immemorial, Sexagesima, 60 days before Easter, is dedicated to remembering the Apostle of the Gentiles, and for centuries the Stazio would have been where he is, St. Paul's outside the walls. We have about half the New Testament, not directly from his pen, but from his brain, for it seems that he had a defect in the eyes, to which there's reference as he writes to the Galatians. So he had a secretary, which gives it actually more power. He goes into mode, and off he goes on a tangent, and the grammatical construction is broken. It's a sign that he's really dictating under the oomph of what he has on his heart. Now, I want to zoom into this question of the Word. We are handicapped. Life is not what it was 50 years ago, and certainly 100 years ago, because, unless we're careful, we have too many words in our head. We are not made to hold that amount of messages and confusion. I know because in complete solitude, enclosure and absence of any devices and phones, referring to the formation years in France, it's not the same. There, one word, one picture can jerk tears and can produce a huge effect on the soul. Now we are dumbed down by too many messages, the which we don't have to have, but how many are able just not to have them, just to be in command? Very, very few. Where do you fit in on the scale? Who commands your time? Who commands what comes into your head and sticks there? It's far more liberating not to have all this stuff, especially now when actually Christians are into it big time too, and are looking at all kinds of YouTubes and blogs, which by their very nature are bringing more weight into their already saturated brain cells. And they're not able sometimes to discern. And if they're of a certain ilk, they'll go into more of the same and get more of the same messages, and they'll become orientated towards a certain norm. And there they are in their trench. It's far more peaceful and balanced to listen to the sacred scriptures and look at Jesus. Let him do the talking and not men. We have in this gospel the different categories, and we have Mr. Nicholas coming in also. Old Nick, who is not far away. The devil comes in and takes away any effect. He takes it out of their hearts, lest that they should believe and be saved. But he's not the only one. Notice there are other things too. Thorns. Those who hear, but their progress is stifled by the cares and riches and pleasures of life, and they do not mature. I want to repeat at least a part of what our friend Old Nick had to say for himself under pressure. It was before he died that a great exorcist drew up a catechism, but a catechism with a difference, the catechism of the devil. He felt that all exorcists should have done the same over the years and collated what they had found from pressurizing Old Nick, who, by the way, has to say the truth sometimes. And this particular one, who was in the area of Venice, on a monastery on the island of San Giorgio, was well known at the time. He's now dead, but he put this in writing before he petered out, lest we forget. The devil's likes. The host in the hand. Priests dressed in or as street cleaners. Priests and bishops enrolled in my sects. That's ecclesiastical Freemasonry. Which, by the way, would explain a lot. He who has ears to hear, let him hear. Mini skirts. Television. We're going back a few years. I wonder what old Nick would say now. Discotheques. Divorce. Abortion. Drugs. You know what goes on now, don't you? These poor people who are hooked, because they're hooked, have already promised next week's dole for drug money. So all they have to live on has to come from somewhere else. I'll leave that bit to your imagination. Bishops and priests who do his work. It's come out in other exorcisms that his great friends now are priests who do, without realizing, the work of the devil for him. Politicians who declare themselves Christian. It's called fishing for the Christian boat. They have language which can pull wool over people's eyes. Judges and magistrates. I happen to have wind of what goes on in the area of Naples. You know that in the south of Italy, there's an underground. In Sicily, it's the mafia. In Naples, it's the Camorra. All well organized and well fueled. By now, there's been a secret agreement in the area of Naples that they will allow a certain part of the market to the new immigrants, because they have nothing else to live on. So just imagine the scenario down there, but it doesn't finish there. The Carabinieri, the police, are good people, and they do their job. They do their best to hunt down where the big flow of drugs are coming from, and arrests are made, sometimes under risk. And then what happens? The court case comes up. The judge gets the facts, and what does he do? For big crimes, he might give 18 months imprisonment. I wonder why. The sects. When studying in Rome, a prof at one lecture came out with this. Sapete che dopo la Chiesa Cattolica, quella più numerosa è i testimoni di Geova. After the Catholic Church in Italy, the most frequent, the most numerous are the Jehovah's Witnesses. And do you know what used to happen when we were blessing the houses? In Italy, at least until the COVID, it was a whole bombardment of houses by the church, positively. A great blessing for the people of God. You met the people in their homes, the Easter blessings. You went round their homes and all the bedrooms. Do you know what used to happen at Abadia? On the fortnight of the blessing of the houses, the local branch of the Jehovah's Witnesses went in just before us because they knew that they would be given admittance. Isn't that clever? Dislikes. This is old Nick now. Confession. Confession, except amongst people like yourselves, has long gone out of the window for most Christians. That means that massively, my friends, right now, people are not in a good spiritual place. They're carrying darkness. They're going to communion in a sacrilegious way. It's unfinished business, and it's not safe. Whatever people say, remember, and this is defined by the Church, the Council of Trent, the only way for a Catholic to receive remission of grave sin is through sacramental confession, in which they have to be named in number and in kind. Now, it doesn't say that a person who is dying suddenly and makes an act of contrition won't go to heaven, but it's saying that in the normal run of things, it's the only safe way. And that's no longer being said. The catechetical knowledge of Christians out there is close to zero. And their instruction is coming from another pulpit. It's called RTE. The Rosary, apparitions of the Blessed Virgin Mary, the little servants who go into convents, exorcists. It's very hard in Ireland to find an exorcist, by the way. Do you know that in 1998, Malachi Martin, who was a controversial figure, but knew things, came out with something which is quite surprising. He, remember, had been formed as a Jesuit, and he was close to more than one pope, to the extent that he was present at the opening of the Third Secret. I mean the words of the Blessed Virgin. And he had this to say: Se il Vaticano rendessero, if the Vatican rendered public the Third Secret, there would be such a shock for the people that the churches would be immediately filled with the faithful on their knees, and the confessionals in all the sanctuaries, cathedrals and basilicas would be crushed by the excessive affluence of people. He, therefore, was not able to say what he knew, but he dropped a hint. And we know from good research that that written bit was not made known directly. We know also from what came through Pius XII's envoy, Schweigel, a Jesuit, who went in 1952 to interview Lucia in her convent. It is in two parts. And one part concerns the Pope, and I believe the other concerns the faith of the Church. Now, that would make sense because of what we have in the fourth memoir. In Portugal, the dogma of the faith will always be preserved. What does that tell you? We need, therefore, a nose, a flair, what we call the gift of discernment, to be able to pick up and to sense a rat and to know where there's something solid and safe. There are ways and means of cultivating that. And by the way, the less one speaks, the more one hears. a word can change time and eternity. Some years ago, I was in difficulty and things hadn't worked out, and a letter came from this man. I was at the time at home, but still actually going to the Norbertines under vows here in Ireland. Kindercroft by now, of course, is closed. And this man wrote to me, and in his letter put one sentence which somehow changed everything. He was putting before my eyes the choice ahead of going to the local bishop, getting ordained that way, or coming to him in Italy, to Sant'Antimo. And he put it this way: the advantages of coming to a place of solemn liturgical prayer. And he used the French, because he's writing in French. Cela donne une grande sérénité, that gives a great serenity. And I realized what he meant. It meant that one goes through one's time on earth in divine mode, that all is rocked in incense and prayer, in chant and timelessness, away from the buzz and the noise and the pressure, with the eyes fixed on God. And anything that was done between the offices, well controlled by the almighty and ancient bell, still ringing, was done in that mode, and not in this mode, which is actually what is devastating right now the ministry. Activism, deadlines, the head full of things. What's the first thing to go? The rosary. What's the next? The divine office. What's the next? Meditation. Why? The night is full precisely of the clutter of internet and all that goes with it. So the virgin dawn has gone and it never comes back. Very different from the calm, unhurried rhythm of the slow monastic life. And it was a word that I listened to. And do you know what? When I got there, one of the first things I was given was a brochure of theirs, and what was on it? What had just happened? It was a picture of my next door neighbour, Frère Dominique, in this position, on the ground, before the high altar, with his arms extended. What was happening? He was being ordained a deacon. And something said, all you've got to do is say yes, and that'll be you in a few months' time. And so it was. The power of a word. But we too, my friends, can have power over each other. It just happens that somebody who would normally be coming here is right now in Rome because of a clear word. You have a vocation. And he listened. And moreover, thank God the bishop listened and didn't send him to Maynooth. I insisted he's got to go to Rome because he won't survive Maynooth. And now he's about to be ordained a deacon and then a priest. These words, therefore, my friends, are powerful, and we can help each other along. I just conclude what went wrong. The monastery is now closed in Italy. What got in? Père André felt it was time to retire. A founder should never retire. No one else can take his place. And once he was no longer there, it fell apart, and activism came in. 2 thinly spread. Beware! Activism, my friends, devastates the soul. But only here once. Enjoy the privilege of your peace.
Filio, que proce